We're talking about scopes.
That's
And
right.
what do you have on top of your gun? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? What kind of optics are you looking through? Are you using, the old naked eye thing, or are you trying to do something
Are you
different?
tired of those old buckhorn sights in your 30-30?
Well,
Or
They-
how about that
they
huge
work.
tall ramp on your Remington?
maybe you got
bolt action.
maybe you got a peep sight and you can't focus on it quite so good anymore because your bifocals are acting up.
A very perfect way to see how somebody can see and shoot, a Ruger 1022 with that front sight in front of the receiver. It's a very low. It's the rear sight. It's in front
Yes.
of it's a very low rear sight.
Yes.
That causes a lot of problems for people.
Yeah, some people can't get down that low on the gun.
Mm-hmm.
And the gun is designed, it comes with a scope rail so that you can mount a scope on it.
Right.
And that's a nice way to be. I know I'm start talking about bifocals. I know a bunch of young kids out in Flushing right now that are going, does Mr. Smith have bifocals?
No. No.
Yes, I do. They're just,
No.
there's no line in there.
You can't. No. There's nothing here.
No. Well,
I don't even need glasses. I just wear these frames with clear plastic in them just to look cool.
one of my buddies, his name's Doug, loves to go shooting. And years ago, I take him to the range. Now, he loves pistols, loves to shoot. I get him to the range, and he's just so energetic. And he starts looking, and I'm watching, and his head keeps doing the circular pattern. I go, and he's spinning imagine facing forward, but you're like making a circle with your face. I said, Doug, what are you doing? He goes, I'm trying to see the sights. Doug, the sights are on top of the gun. You're not even looking at the gun. I said, well, I'm trying. And he was, some folks' eyes just don't work. That's why you might be able to see the target perfectly, and that's where lasers come in handy. You know?
For instance, with me in contacts,
Yes.
if I'm wearing contacts, my eyes do not focus on on handgun sights.
Yeah. But when you wear your glasses,
When I wear my glasses, they focus perfect.
well, that's good.
So,
If the bad guy knows you're wearing contacts, you're in good shape.
well,
They're in good shape.
never know. I might just not have anything on. They hit you and all your friends at once.
Yeah, that's why you carry a judge.
Yeah.
No, well,
It's under that coat. It's a 12 gauge.
yeah, don't say that. But anyways, we have when talking about scopes and optics, there's so many different options. My gosh, half the ads in the doggone gun magazines now are for different style
Yeah,
scopes
it is.
or different scopes specifically designed for the caliber you're shooting. The 223 scopes and 308 scopes and the Sweet 17 scopes and the 22 Magnum scopes. They're designed specifically, so they kind of take the guesswork out a little bit once you get them zeroed in.
Well, before we do anything about scopes, we have to say, how is a scope measured?
Okay,
All those numbers I read off earlier. Let's
Yeah.
explain those. So
I think that's very important. Let's go to Scope 101 right here.
Let's take a standard scope, the Leupold Vari X2 in 3 to 9 by 40.
That's I don't know if I'd call it a standard scope, but that's a darn nice scope right there.
It's
What you would if you went into a sporting goods store and said, I want to buy a great gun for my son to start deer hunting with, and I want to get him a great scope. He'll have it for the rest of his life. That might be the option
Exactly.
right there.
So it's a 3 to 9 by 40. Well, what does that mean? Well, the first two numbers, 3 to 9, it means that's the magnification level. It goes from a 3 power of magnification up to a 9 power of magnification.
Right.
It's adjustable on the
Not changing the zero of the gun, but changing the magnification of the.
It's like when you go to the eye
Vision.
doctor, 1 or 2,
Yes.
2 or 3, 3 or 4. It's like that.
All right.
But then it's a knob on the back of the scope typically that turns, and it'll have numbers 3 to 9.
Basically, it's a zoom factor.
Exactly.
Okay, it lets you zoom in.
Now, what does the 40 mean? The 40 is the size of the objective of the lens. So the front of the sight, the larger area, typically
the end of the scope.
the end. The end of the scope.
Right.
It's 40 millimeters across.
Okay.
The diameter is 40 millimeters. Some of them are 30 millimeters. Some of them are 24. Some of them are 50.
Right.
44. What's some other?
There's some 52s.
That's right.
There are even some that are designed now for a lower mount that have they might be a 40 millimeter lens, but they're actually rounded at the bottom so that they fit down closer to your barrel.
Almost contoured for the barrel.
Yes, contoured for the barrel. Very interesting how scopes are made.
So that's the numbers, folks. 3 to 9 by 40. It's a power factor from 3 to 9 magnification, and 40 is the millimeter in diameter of the
So it's four.
front of the scope.
So in other words, the front lens of the scope is 4 centimeters wide. Okay,
Yeah.
which is 40 millimeters. Now, just because it's a 3 to 9, it doesn't mean all scopes are that way. Now, just so you know, there are fixed power scopes too.
Yep.
A standard scope, when I was a kid, you put a 4-power scope on just about everything. And then the variable scopes started coming in. My dad had Weaver K4s on 3 different rifles. And, no, wait a minute. 2 different rifles. Sorry. And a Weaver had 1.5 power. They had 2.5 power. They had 4 power. Jake, don't you have a Weaver?
I have a Weaver K 2.5.
2.5,
2.5.
exactly. And they had 6 power. And 6 power is what a lot of the snipers used in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And so there's a plethora of scopes out there, that's for sure.
So let's say this. Like right now, Nikon, we're just going to do a couple Nikons here. They have the M223 scope.
Okay.
This is a scope specifically designed for a 223 caliber rifle, whether it be an AR or a bolt action. This one has a power of 4 to 16
Wow.
magnification and has a 42 millimeter objective lens.
That's a big scope.
It's a very big
That's
scope.
a big scope.
But it also has a 600 yard bullet drop compensator.
So this is where it does all the math for you.
Yes, there's dots.
Yep. And if you have it like zeroed in at 100 yards, those dots, and you got to follow the instructions because it might be zeroed at 200. And then those dots will take you out to 600 yards and make you hit accurately. So if you are coyote hunting and you're seeing coyotes at the back of the cornfield and you know it's 450 yards away, you'll know that on the 4th dot down or wherever the paperwork tells you, that's where you aim.
Now, how about the Nikon M308 scope?
Yes.
This is the same thing. It's a 4 to 16 by 42, but it has an 800 yard bullet drop compensator in it.
Interesting. That's a long ways. That is a long ways.
Now, let's say you want to do something a little further away.
2,400 feet away.
Yeah. Well, we'll get this one here. Leupold offers a Variax 6, which is another one of their models, the Variax 6. This one has magnification that goes from 7 power all the way up, all the way, keep going, keep going, a little further, all the way up to 42 power magnification.
That's
And
like,
it has a 56 millimeter lens.
this sounds more like a creeper scope than a.
I see my neighbor in the next
Yeah,
town.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a 42, a Variax 6. See, I've never seen one of these, and I probably never will, because other than online, that's quite a scope.
Yep.
What would you put that on?
I don't know. Not your 22 Plinker.
I would imagine.
Do you want to see that? I like to hit a squirrel in the second hair behind the left
you know,
shoulder.
It'd be nice if a scope that good had a camera built into it, so that you could zoom in and take pictures.
You
That'd
know,
be nice.
that would be that's something coming down the pipe.
Well, they do have it on spotting scopes now with the
Right.
cameras in them, but this is
So those three would be your long range scopes.
yes. No, I'm familiar with this. I have on one of my AR-15s. I have a 4 to 16 power by 50 millimeter lens, and it is nice. It's not an expensive scope. It's a Simmons scope. It's a $125 scope.
See, I have a Simmons also on my 7 millimeter Magnum,
Yes,
and that's a 4 to
you have a 4 to 10,
4 to 10, but it has the 44 millimeter
right?
objective.
And
lens.
what that lens does. Now let's go to scopes. Can we talk about that for a minute about the field of view? Or
Yeah,
are you going
'cause-
to get to it later?
Nope, we can do that right now.
Okay.
That's fine.
Now, with the field of view, now that's what scopes are all about. The quality of the scopes bring in the light. Okay, so the more you spend on a scope, chances are the better you're going to see through it.
It's a brighter
Yes, brighter.
field of view.
But you want to look through every scope individually. Never just buy one in a box and take it. We'll get into that later. Now, but when you look through a scope, why do you have those great big scopes and it gets big at the end? That makes your field of view wider at, let's say, 100 yards. They're 1 football field away. If you have a scope like it's a straight tube scope and it's got a 20 millimeter lens.
That's what my Weaver K2.5 is.
That one will give you, say, a 26-foot field of view at 100 yards. So you're gonna, when you look through that scope, you're going to see a 26-foot wide picture. Okay? Well, we've realized over the years that when you're hunting and you're glassing, you know, and you're looking for your game or whatever you're doing, that wider field of view allows more light in, lets you have a brighter picture, especially at twilight, which is a very important time for hunting, right at the beginning of dawn and at the you know, at the end of the day in your twilight hours of hunting. Or if you're in the woods, you want that bright field of view, that wide view picture. Those bigger bells of the end of the scopes that are the 44s and 50 millimeters, those bring in a lot of light. Plus, they'll give you like 60 feet of view in width at 100 yards. So much, much bigger sight picture. All right, we got to go to commercial break.
When we come back, we're going to talk about some other options for optics.
If you got any questions, feel free to give us a call right here in the studio, 810-743-8255. We are the Gunsmiths. We're live on the radio here on WFNT and WLCO and on the World Wide Web. So hang on tight. We'll be back in just a quick minute.
Who's watching your home? Who's watching your business? Pal Burglar Alarm can watch them for you. They have over 30 years' experience protecting homes and businesses in mid-Michigan. Pal Burglar Alarm provides 24-hour monitoring service through their UL-listed monitoring center based right here in Michigan. They also offer armed guard services and no long-term contracts. Besides burglary protection, they can also monitor for flooding, sump pump failure, CO2 detection, temperature sensors to prevent pipes from freezing, panic, fire, and driveway alarms. Pal Burglar Alarm, a price you can live with. Call them today at 810-908-8298. That's 810-908-8298 or palalarm.com.
Everyone knows Williams Gun Sight in Davison is the place to go for all your firearm, shooting accessories, hunting gear, and so much more. Plus, great gunsmiths in-house to take care of all your maintenance and customizing needs. But what you might not know, Williams has a great website, williamsgunsight.com. You can browse all their accessories, plus their huge selection of used guns. So definitely check out their website, williamsgunsight.com, and swing into the store, 7389 Lapeer Road, that's in Davison. Exit 143 off I-69. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 until 6, and Sunday, 10 until 5. Williams Gun Sight, on the range since 1926.
Let's talk about a private matter, insuring your guns. Do you know that your home insurance has limitations when it comes to insuring guns? To get the most out of a policy, you need to schedule your guns and collectibles. Zach Goodhart is the Farm Bureau insurance agent who understands guns and how to insure them properly. Zach is an avid sportsman that respects the value of your gun collection and will work with you to make sure you are covered. Contact Zach Goodhart from Farm Bureau at 810-391-2455. Zach is a board member of the local Safari Club International, a member of Pheasant Forever, and the NRA. Call Zach Goodhart today to protect your way of life at 810-391-2455.
And now back to the Gunsmith Show with John and Jake Smith.
If you'd like to talk to John or Jake, call now, 810-743-8255.
Yeehaw! Here we are, Gunsmith Show, already half over. We're looking up at the top of the hour, and
we're still talking about scope.
Yes, and it's a good thing, though. It's good information. I hope you're listening. I know there's a lot of folks out there that, you know, old schools that know you got to learn how to use the sights on the gun, and you should. But if you find that the youngsters that you're trying to teach are so frustrated, it might be that time to put that scope on that gun so that they understand better what they're aiming at and what they're shooting at.
Well, since we do live in Michigan, I would say probably at least half of the hunters in Michigan hunt in less than 100 yards of area. Most of the deer shot are in less than 100 yards.
Right.
Kind of a brush gun situation, so you need a specific set of optics for.
I thought you were going to say skills there for a second.
For brush hunting.
A taken moment.
But you know, it used to be red dots, but there's holographic sights now, and that's where the EOTech comes in.
Yes.
EOTech produces a top-notch holographic sight called the Model 512.
Industrial grade.
Yes.
This thing will be here after nuclear holocaust. I'm telling you, it is quite a scope
Now,
or sight.
there's no magnification to it,
Right.
but it produces this like red circle.
You've seen them probably on or video games, or you
Yeah,
see.
you know, I honestly, you do most of these Call of Duty games on PlayStations or whatever. They have EOTech sites, and it even says EOTech on the site.
yeah, it does. Yep, it's well marketed.
Yeah.
But nice sites.
So
And where were they made?
Michigan.
That's what I
They're
thought.
made. Yep, they're made right in Michigan.
Yep.
When I called down there, I talked to the head of marketing. Very nice people, and they talked to me a little bit about their sites and how most of their products do go overseas to military use.
Oh, sure.
But they're always glad to support civilians back home.
And they're supporting us. They're
That's right.
part of the sponsorship of the show.
They gave us a Model 512 to try out on a couple different rifles.
Yes. Yep.
And
I like it. I enjoy it.
Yep.
You could use the magnification factor for it.
Right.
There is a magnifier that can go in front of it.
Not on the 512.
It mounts on the rail in front of it.
Nope.
Doesn't work.
Nope. The magnifiers go behind the sight. So you look through a tube.
Yeah, before you see the sight.
Right.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Oh.
But anyways, the 512. If these holographic sights might be what you want to see, because it gives you a very interesting sight picture.
Interesting enough, it also can work on a shotgun.
Yes, we have seen them on shotguns.
Yep.
Very interesting.
And
now
it comes in camouflage too.
they're doing them holographic that actually go on handguns now.
Yeah.
FN and Smith & Wesson, the core ones, they're making their handguns with these small holographic sights, so you don't have to try to line the sights up anymore like you had to before. It's a very futuristic sight picture, so very interesting. But that's not really what we're talking about.
No,
we're
no.
talking scopes today.
We're talking scopes. So let's say you're still brush hunting, but you want a quick little scope. Well, here's another Michigan product. It's from the Mueller Optics Company of Johannesburg, Michigan.
Now, Mueller spelled Mueller.
That's right.
Mueller Optics. And these are really, really nice looking scopes. And again, like Jake said, made right here in Michigan.
Now, it's called the Speed Shot 1-4 by 24. So this is a 1-4 power scope.
And this is what most 30-30s or 35s or even 44 Magnum rifles for deer hunting, this is what this works.
Well, and it has a 24 objective lens, so 24 millimeter. So it's a straight tube scope.
Yep. And very nice gun.
There's no bell on the end of it. It's a straight tube. It goes right out. But for close, quick, that's why it's called the Speed Shot.
Yep. Quick sight acquisition. That's the way to go. We've got scopes like this that work on the guns that we put them on. When you're on a sandbag and you're trying to hit something at 180 yards, and you're trying to zero it right in, that's when you want those higher magnification scopes. But for quick sight acquisition, even in like safaris, this is the type of scope you'd use on a safari gun for close work on large animals.
Yeah.
Not to say that's what you're gonna go do today, but
I think I'm going to fly to Zimbabwe and do a zebra hunt.
Even honestly, even for squirrel hunters, this scope would work great.
Yeah.
Because you're looking, you're trying to follow that squirrel through the trees because squirrel season's coming up. What's today? June 14th?
Yeah.
Squirrel season's just a few
4
months
months away.
July, August,
3 months.
September. 3 months and a
Holy
day as
cow.
squirrel season opens, folks. So get ready.
Well, I know what I'm going to ask.
Go
off
buy
for
some
work.
22 shells today.
Yeah. Well, okay, how about handguns?
Yes.
Maybe your Super Blackhawk isn't so super at 100 yards.
Oh, yeah. I've had a 10.5-inch super. I've had two 10.5-inch Super Blackhawks with scopes on them.
Yeah.
That is a fun gun to shoot because it's you can hit just like a rifle with that thing with a scope on it.
Well, you want to put a scope on it, but you don't want to just put any scope on it. Handguns require different scopes.
Yes, they do.
Because they need that longer eye relief.
And the impact.
And the impact.
Of the handgun round is very, very hard to hit.
Now, that's where Weaver has kind of mastered this art.
Okay.
The Weaver Classic handgun scope has been specifically designed to stand up to 1,000 rounds from the 454 Casull.
Wow.
So they fired somebody had to shoot 1,000 rounds.
Some poor guy.
Yeah, please not another round.
Yeah. Please. Popeye, they keep feeding him cans of spinach while he's got his arm all puffed up.
Well, it's from 1,000 rounds, a 454 Casull, so this scope itself can handle it, because a lot of times scopes, the crosshairs will break.
Scopes fail.
Crosshairs are nothing more than small pieces of
Wire or filament.
yeah
in
that
there.
are threaded across and create that crosshair, and those can snap, and that's why the Weaver Classic handgun has been designed so they won't snap.
Now, Jake, you wanted me to talk about a failure I had with a scope.
Yes.
Now, when I was a kid, I remember the first 3 to 9 by 40 scope I bought. I took it right to the town gunsmith, which was Mr. Walters in Ortonville when I was a kid. And I was putting it on a 35 Remington. And Mr. Walters looked at me and he says, "Kid, what are you putting a 3 to 9 variable on a 35 Remington for?" And I said, "Well, you know, I like that variable power scope. I want to be able to see what I'm hitting." He goes, "You don't need that big of a scope on there." Well, I put it on anyway. But that resonates in my mind because he was right. I really didn't need that powerful of a scope on that gun, but I enjoyed it, you know. So sometimes, you know, you get a fast car, you don't need it, but you get it.
No.
Well, the scopes, though, what I'm getting to the point is, I took that 3 to 9 variable and eventually moved it to a different gun. I put it on a Mini 14, and I shot it, and I shot it, and I shot it, and I shot literally thousands of rounds with that scope until one day I looked through that scope, and it was a Tasco, and there was no crosshairs left. And I'm like, what? Where did my crosshairs go? Well, they shattered. They fell apart. They broke. They crumbled. There was a little bit of dust inside there, and they literally fell apart.
Did you cut open the scope to see what happened?
I did cut the scope open to see what I destroyed the scope trying to, because I figured, you know what, back then,
If I cut it in half, I can just tape it back together and put new crosshairs on it.
no.
You got a Sharpie,
No,
you're
but
drawing with a Sharpie.
I
on
did
one
take
end
it
of the
apart to
scope.
start to try to understand how they're put together, and those things are built like tanks, man.
Yeah.
It was a stupid destruction of property, and I threw it in the garbage eventually, and went out and bought another one. But it does happen. You do sometimes lose those crosshairs, and it's not just your eyes, but there's options on those crosshairs too that we're going to talk about.
Yes. You know, but there's
Yes.
other brands that have come out recently again.
Oh, more different brands. Okay, what do you want to talk about?
Well, you know, like the Redfield company.
Redfield's back on the market.
Redfield started in like 1909.
When I was a kid, Redfields were big, man.
Oh,
Not
they-
to say it was
well-
1909. I'm just saying that a Redfield scope was a high-end scope when I was a kid.
They were big until 1998 when they closed.
Yeah,
But in 2008, Leupold bought them.
really.
Yep.
But now Leupold's quite a company.
Well, they are. And, you know, Leupold's from Oregon.
Yes,
They bought Redfield,
Yes.
moved one of the plants to Oregon.
yes.
But be careful, because the other 4 plants are all in China.
Well,
The Redfield scopes, there's only 2 models of the Redfields that are actually made in Oregon. The rest are made overseas.
All right.
It's the Revolution and the Revolution TAC. The other ones, you see the Redfield Revenge scopes, they're
Yes.
called. Those are not made here.
Okay.
And there's a couple other newer brands they're coming out with that are not made in Oregon.
All right.
Are they still good scopes?
Sure.
Yes.
There's some good optics coming out of China.
But there's also, you know, a
And
lot
Korea.
of quality optics,
And
like
Korea.
Mueller, right out of Michigan.
Yes.
Leupold's out of Oregon. There's a lot of quality sights systems made right here.
How about Trijicon,
Trigicon's made right also down in
Farmington Hills?
it's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, we're nestled into.
Well, and
quite a-
Trigicon's right down the road from EOTech. That's the
That's
funny
right.
thing. So
Yep.
they're both direct competitors in a way.
Yep.
And they're both right down the road from each other.
Yep.
It's like a Home Depot and Lowe's situation. Now, many
Yeah.
of you probably still have those classical Tasco world-class scopes.
You might have them.
They're still available.
And Tasco had, you know, inexpensive scopes, and they had the world class, which was like the step up.
Yeah.
World class is, I've got some world class scopes on some of my higher end rifles, and they're beautiful. They are really, really good optic scopes.
But there's also some scopes that are no longer around.
Yes.
Kmart
Yes.
scopes. I have a Kmart scope.
Yes, you do have a Kmart scope.
It works good.
And they were
So far.
and they were made by
So, and they say made in Japan.
That's
so
all
it
they
was
say.
probably made by Tasco.
probably. Yep. They looked a lot alike. A lot of interchangeable parts there.
Williams Twilight scopes.
Now those honestly, when I was a kid, Williams Twilight was the epitome. I swear to you, it was. I know I don't talk to you about this much, but one of the most accurate rifles I've ever seen had a Williams scope on it,
Really?
and that was my brother's scope, and it was called a Twilight because it had a bright field of view. You could see through that scope better than most.
Yeah.
And my brother Dave still has that gun put together in the same way, and it'll still shoot dimes at 100 yards.
Yeah.
So good
Now-
good gun.
Marlin made scopes, but Marlin had scopes. They were made by Bushnell.
Yep.
They had a gold line around them, somewhat like a Leupold, but in a
Good
little
looking
different
scope.
fashion.
I don't know who made them, but it was a good looking scope.
And the Ted Williams scopes. What didn't have a Ted Williams name on it back in the day?
Yeah.
These were from Sears, and they were actually made by Weaver.
Really?
Yep,
So if you got a Ted Williams, you have a Weaver scope.
that's right.
Now then Bushnell's from Marlin. Those were some good looking scopes, and they're kind of collectible.
They are collectible.
I've got a picture of a 35 Remington with a Marlin scope on it, and they were good looking scopes.
I wish I could remember. I want to say it was Gold Line.
It might have been Gold Line, because that was the look on it.
It had, yeah.
Now there was a, Weatherby makes scopes too.
Yeah.
And the old Weatherbys, they were different. The windage and elevation were both on the same side.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very interesting how they did those. So lots of cool scopes out there. But, there have been many great scopes and many bad scopes throughout the years. And you might have a good one, you might have a bad one. I've got a goofy thing on one of my rifles right now. What is that scope? It has a two different sight pictures if you want.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
It has a switch, and if you turn the switch on the scope, it gives you you have fine crosshairs, but if you turn the switch, it gives you a post and crosshair.
Yep.
And Jake, you wanted to talk about post and crosshair too, didn't you?
Well, there's just so many different options for
The view,
the views.
of what you see.
My
through that
favorite
scope.
is the post and crosshair. It looks like a letter T.
It gives you a strong post, a vertical post coming up to your center point, which is your point of aim,
Yep.
and a horizontal fine line to give you the point of horizon where you're at. So
Yep.
so you've got it's very quick sight acquisition, very very nice. And I've had these before. Lyman, I've had a Lyman post and crosshair, and you have a Weaver post and crosshair.
I found mine. This is one of the things, folks. Never be afraid to look at old gas stations, old hardware stores. I found that scope in a hardware store up in Hale. As an accident. It's like, what's that? Oh, we have some scopes back here. Really? Well, let me see it. That's exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
So, never be afraid to
very
look.
Classic scope.
Yep.
And you got it at a good price. It's worth twice what you paid for it.
Yeah.
So that's good.
And I put
That's
on a era correct rifle,
Yes.
so it's made into a.
It was from the 60s, and it's on a gun from the 60s, and it looks good.
Yep.
Looks nice.
We have to go to commercial break, unfortunately, but
we don't
have
to, do we?
When we come back, we're gonna kind of break into reloading.
Yeah, let's talk about reloading a little bit. That's one of my passions. And so hang on tight. We'll be back in just a minute. We're going to talk reloading on the Gunsmith Show. Flag Day, June 14th, 2014.